But if they spiked him with a bayonet, then they were sure he was really dead.
How many died in Stalin's terror? Some historians say 3 million, some 20 million. One estimate, not the worst by a long chalk, is that around 7 million people died in the Gulag. That's a number mentioned in the old history textbook that's been dumped. And the positive history book? It says that 786,000 were sentenced to death. Now that number's correct, but what about the millions more who died in the Gulag of cold and hunger and disease?
Let's have a look. Here's the bit about the repressions, and it's spread over 3 pages.
So the number is 786,000 were condemned to death.
Yeah.
Where is the number that says millions died? It's not there, is it? History matters. In many schools across Russia, Filipov's state-sponsored textbook will soon take pride of place. The Kremlin's official spokesman declined to give us an interview, but it's fair to say that Putin has on several occasions denounced the worst features of Stalinism. In fact, Putin mentioned the worst of the terror as a dark page in Russia's history when he lectured the teachers 2 years ago. But how can Russia's leader denounce Stalin and at the same time promote positive history, which puts a gloss on what Stalin actually did? That doesn't make sense. One reason? It's just like that in Russia. There's no serious scrutiny of power, so it's easy for the boss to contradict himself. But at least one former Kremlin insider says Russia has never really come to terms with Stalin's legacy, or Stalin the man.
He should have been in the dock. There should have been a Nuremberg judgment.
And Russia is paying a price for that not happening.
Absolutely, Russia is paying a price, still paying a price. Will continue to pay a price until someone has, and I mean someone who can make this happen, has the courage to bring it up and say, okay, now let's deal with this thing. As long as it's not there, as long as they don't deal with it, Russia will continue to pay a price.
No one is saying that life in today's Russia is the same as life under Stalin. But critics of the Kremlin say that if you listen, you can hear an echo. 10 years ago, Putin was the new boy in the Kremlin. War in Chechnya followed. Then critics of the dark side of Putin's rule started to end up dead. Some got shot, some poisoned. No one who ordered the killings has been tried. And only in October, local elections in Moscow, overwhelmingly won by Putin's party, featured some funny, peculiar results. For example, in the polling area where one opposition leader lived, no one voted for him, not even himself. Putin calls his system sovereign democracy, which some Russians say has as much resemblance to real democracy as a real chair has to an electric chair.
This is not a democracy. This is a growing democracy. It's going to take a couple of generations. And first and foremost, it's not a democracy in people's minds.
And this fondness, this nostalgia for Stalin is part of that. It's
of course
part of
it is.
It's the eddy against the flow.
Exactly, exactly.
Do you detect in Putin a bit of an echo of Stalin?
Well, look, I know Putin personally. I never had the opportunity to meet Stalin. I knew a man who knew him very well, and who used to describe him. He said he had a kind of a weak handshake and a very low voice, and he never raised it. And he had yellow eyes. And when he was angry, they would glow as if there was a furnace there, like a tiger or something. And people were terribly afraid of him. And he spoke very little. He spoke very little. And I don't think Putin's like that at all. And I don't think Putin's a dictator. Yes, he's authoritarian. And that authoritarian streak in him is very Russian and very pleasing to many Russians. But he's not at all a Stalinist.
Putin may not be Stalin, but in modern Russia, just digging up history can get you into an awful lot of trouble. Archangel, an ancient port on Russia's northern coast. During the war, the sailors of the British Arctic convoys risked their lives to bring aid to the Soviet Union through here. During the Terror, this bleak outpost was a hub for Stalin's Gulag. The full force of winter hasn't hit yet, but life is already proving pretty cold for two men who've been doing their best to unlock the secrets of Russia's Stalinist past. The secret police recorded everything under communism. Sentences, deportations, deaths. The files for Archangel are held here, in this police station. They are gold for people seeking out their family histories, but they could also reveal who signed the paperwork, the secret policeman responsible. Stories some don't want told. The historian in charge of the archive is Alexander Dudarev, who holds a police rank. He was helping a history professor access the secrets of the archive for those who've lost relatives in the Gulag. A case against the two historians was started by the FSB, the new name for the KGB. Dudarev can't speak about the case. Both he and the professor face the threat of criminal charges. It's now feared that 200 secret police archives all around the country will be scared into closing their doors if the two historians here are tried. Guess what happened to us after we openly filmed outside the police station housing the archive? We're from the BBC.
BBC?
Yeah. We're making a film about Stalin, probably called Stalin's Back. Is there a problem?
No problem.
There was a problem. First, police officers came, questioned us, and went through our papers with a fine-tooth comb. What's the copper saying?
We have to get a permission from the building to film it.
Right, we have to, yes. Why do we have to do that?
Your press accreditations, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
This comes as standard in Russia, but that wasn't the end of it. Once the police had finished with us, we were followed to a hotel, and off camera, the police questioned us further, just as would happen to anyone making a history program in England. Or not, as the case may be. The local prosecutor is investigating the historians.
The case was brought following complaints made by the relatives, that is, by the direct heirs of those individuals. It is set out in the Russian constitution that the collection, use and distribution of personal information on individuals is not allowed without their consent.
But all of this happens more than half a century ago. Stalin died more than half a century ago. How can it be worthy of investigation? How can it be a crime to find out what happened all those years ago? It's just history. There are people who are still alive who did Stalin's work for him, who shot people, who forced them to the Gulag. Now, surely they are the true criminals.
I will explain once again. I am a law enforcer, not a historian. It's like the highway code. If you don't break the law, no one will take your car away.
The archivist and the professor of history will not hear for several weeks whether they will face charges. Many who were swallowed up by Stalin's Gulag made this journey from Moscow, 700 miles due east to Perm and the foothills of the Urals. Books can only teach you so much history. This place lets you breathe it. These are the opening lines of the most famous poem written about Stalin in the 30s. We live deaf to the land beneath us, 10 steps away, no one hears our voices. Those words could have been written about the people who used to exercise here. And for writing those words, a man called Osip Mandelstam was sentenced to a camp in the Gulag, and that's where he died. Museum curator Viktor Smirov is confronted daily by the memories of Stalin's terror. He has no time for positive history.
History ought to be as objective as possible, not positive. If you're talking about the subject, history, then you should be objective. If you're talking school history, it should tell the school kids, the students, who are studying about the history of this country, however bad it was. There should be some kind of a national program to keep the memory alive of the terror that took place during the communist period of our country's history. This history should be well known, well remembered, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it.
Not much sign of that in Russia today. The danger is that if you censor history, tell half-truths and smudge the facts, you may end up repeating the mistakes of the past. And that would mean that the wretches who died behind this barbed wire died for nothing.